The maintenance shaft on level 7 of Outpost Epsilon wasn't meant to be beautiful, but Kai found peace in its honest ugliness. Grease-stained walls told stories of countless repairs, and the perpetual hum of machinery provided a rhythm to his work. At 23, he'd already earned a reputation as the station's miracle worker, though his appearance, perpetually oil-smudged and dressed in patched coveralls, kept him far from the station's more prestigious social circles. The first sign something was different came when the atmospheric recyclers hiccuped. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Kai felt the subtle change in air pressure, like a held breath. He was tracing the problem through a maze of pipes when he heard it, humming, but not from any machine he knew. The sound led him to a rarely used cargo bay. There, perched precariously on a stack of supply crates, sat the most striking woman he'd ever seen. Her skin had an unusual opalescent quality that he attributed to the bay's poor lighting, and she was studying a broken maintenance drone with complete fascination. "You know, those things bite," Kai said, making her jump. The drone clattered to the floor, and he could have sworn her eyes shifted color, like oil on water. "I was merely examining its internal architecture," she replied, her accent impossible to place. "The quantum processing core appears to be misaligned by approximately 0.3 microns. Kai blinked. Most people couldn't even open a maintenance drone, let alone diagnose quantum components. "I'm Kai," he offered, retrieving the drone. "Station's repair specialist, though I've never seen you around here before." "Rena," she said after a pause that lasted a heartbeat too long. "I'm studying human engineering practices." Something about her phrasing was odd, but Kai was more interested in her technical knowledge. "Well, Rena, want to see how we fix these things. I've got a whole workshop of broken wonders." Her face lit up with genuine excitement. "You would share such knowledge freely?" "Sure," Kai shrugged. "Knowledge wants to be free. Besides, most people around here think I'm just the guy who keeps the toilets flushing." Over the next few weeks, Rena became a regular visitor to Kay's workshop. She absorbed everything he taught her about human technology with extraordinary speed, asking questions that made him think about his work in new ways. She was particularly fascinated by his personal projects, hybrid devices that combined different technologies in ways their original designers never intended. What Kai didn't know was that every night, Rena returned to a cloaked ship docked in a forgotten corner of the station. There, she removed the sophisticated holographic disguise that let her pass as human, revealing iridescent scales and delicate fins. Princess Rena Maktu of the Lizarian Empire was supposed to be touring potential trading partners under heavy guard. Instead, she'd slipped away to study humans directly, fascinated by their ability to create elegant solutions from seemingly primitive technology. As her time with Kai lengthened, Rena found herself struggling with her deception. Every time he shared another engineering secret or told her about his dreams of improving life on the station, the weight of her lies grew heavier. But revealing herself meant risking everything: her freedom to explore, the wonderful friendship they'd built, and possibly even the delicate peace between their species. Meanwhile, Kai was fighting battles of his own. His growing feelings for this mysterious woman were complicated by his certainty that she was hiding something significant. The way she sometimes seemed surprised by common human behaviors, her occasional use of advanced theoretical concepts that shouldn't exist yet in human science, and those eyes that seemed to change with her moods, it all added up to something he couldn't quite grasp. Their comfortable routine was shattered when Kai overheard two station security officers discussing an alert about a Lizarian princess who'd gone missing during a diplomatic tour. The description of her unusual technical interests and the timing of her disappearance clicked into place like the final piece of a puzzle he hadn't known he was solving. That evening, as they worked together to rebuild a damaged atmospheric regulator, Kai watched Rena's hands moving with impossible precision and finally understood why she'd never needed him to explain the basic principles of quantum engineering. The question was, what would he do with this knowledge? The royal flagship of the Lizarian Empire cut silently through space, its captain growing increasingly frantic. Princess Rena Maktu's scheduled return was mere weeks away, and her secret excursions to Outpost Epsilon were becoming harder to cover up. Commander Voss, her assigned security chief, had already begun to suspect something was amiss with their regular maintenance stops near the human station. In Kay's workshop, Rena was learning about human music, fascinated by how the crude vibrations could evoke such complex emotions. Kai had rigged an old speaker system, playing what he called classical rock, while they worked on their latest project, a hybrid power cell that combined human reliability with Lizarian efficiency. Of course, he didn't know the latter part was Lizarian. Rena had carefully presented her contributions as theoretical concepts. "Your birthday's coming up, isn't it?" Kai asked casually, not looking up from his work. Rena froze, her fin-like hair nearly flickering visible through her holographic disguise. She had mentioned it once, weeks ago, trying to understand human celebration customs. She hadn't expected him to remember. "Yes," she said carefully, "though we don't celebrate as humans do." "How do you celebrate?" The question was innocent, but his eyes held something knowing that made her scales tingle beneath their disguise. I mean my people," she stumbled, then recovered. "It's a private affair." Kai set down his tools. Private like a planetary celebration with thousands of guests. Private like the heir to the Lizarian Empire turning 30 in their years. The silence between them grew thick enough to cut. Rena's holographic disguise flickered once, her control slipping with her shock. "How long have you known?" "Suspected for weeks, knew for sure. About 3 days ago. He picked up a peculiar device he'd been tinkering with. That's when I finally figured out why my quantum alignment was always slightly off until you adjusted it. You see in spectrums I can't even detect, don't you?" Rena's disguise fell away entirely, her iridescent scales catching the workshop's harsh light. She expected fear, repulsion, or at least surprise. Instead, Kai just smiled and held out the device. "It's not finished yet. Was hoping to have it done for your birthday. It's a quantum harmonizer that translates light spectrums. Thought maybe you'd like to see our world the way we see it, while letting us see a bit of yours too." Tears welled in Rena's multifaceted eyes, each droplet refracting light like a prism. "You built this for me knowing what I am, even though I lied to you." "You never lied about who you are," Kai said softly. "Just what you are. And who you are is someone who gets excited about broken droids and weird human music, and finding new ways to make things work better." He paused. "Though I admit, finding out you're a princess was a bit of a shock. I'm not exactly court material." Their moment was interrupted by an urgent beeping from Rena's communicator. Commander Voss's voice came through, tight with tension. "Your Highness, your father's representatives have arrived early for the celebration. Your absence has been noted. We must return immediately." Rena looked at Kai, panic clear in her color-shifting eyes. "I have to go." "I know." He pressed the unfinished harmonizer into her hands. "Take it. Consider it an early birthday gift. Though I wish—" "Come with me," she blurted out. "As my technical advisor, no one questions Lizarian royalty traveling with their personal staff. Pretty sure they'll question a dirty human mechanic." They'll question. Then they'll see your work, see how you've merged our technologies in ways our engineers never considered, and they'll understand why I chose you. She grabbed his hand. Please, my birthday celebration lasts 3 days. After that, we can figure out what comes next. Kai looked around his workshop, at the life he'd built among the pipes and circuits of Outpost Epsilon. Then he looked at Rena, who had brought colour and wonder into his world of grease and metal. I'll need 10 minutes to pack my tools. The Lizarian royal palace made Outpost Epsilon look like a child's construction toy. Crystal spires twisted impossibly through the air, their surfaces shifting colours with the movement of the 3 suns overhead. Kai felt profoundly out of place, even after being cleaned up and dressed in formal attire that Rena had arranged. Commander Voss watched him constantly, clearly suspicious of how this human had gained the princess's trust. But even Voss couldn't deny Kai's technical brilliance when he solved a critical issue with the palace's atmospheric generators within hours of arriving. The celebrations begin tomorrow, Rena told him as they worked together in her private laboratory. My father has arranged presentations from 17 potential suitors. Kai's hands stilled on the quantum harmonizer he was finalizing. Suitors. It's tradition. On our 30th birthday, we're expected to begin considering political alliances. She wouldn't meet his eyes. The celebrations conclude with my announcement of which proposals I'll consider. And where do dirty human mechanics fit into these traditions? They don't, she admitted. But neither does a princess who sneaks away to study human engineering. Sometimes traditions need to evolve. Their conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the palace. The central power core was destabilizing, a deliberate act of sabotage they would later learn by those opposed to any alliance with humans. In the chaos that followed, Kai realized the quantum harmonizer could be modified into something far more significant than a birthday gift. Working through the night, he rebuilt it into an interface that would allow the Lizarian power systems to synchronize with human technology. As the palace's power grid approached critical failure, Kai explained his plan to the royal engineers. They were skeptical, but Rena understood immediately. Together, they integrated his hybrid system into the failing power core. The result wasn't just a repair. It was an improvement, creating a more stable and efficient system than either civilization had achieved alone. Your Highness, one of the elder engineers said, examining the new system with all 4 of his eyes wide. This integration method, it could revolutionize our entire power distribution network. And you say this human designed it? He did more than design it. Rena replied proudly. He showed us that we don't have to choose between our ways and human innovation. We can find strength in combining both. The news of the averted disaster, and more importantly, the elegant solution, spread quickly through the palace. Kai found himself explaining his work to increasingly senior officials, while Rena watched with barely concealed satisfaction. When her father, the Emperor, requested a private audience, Kai thought he was either going to be thanked or executed. He hadn't expected the Emperor to laugh. So, you're the reason my daughter became so fascinated with human engineering, the Emperor said, his scales shifting through amused patterns. I must admit, when she first suggested including humans in our trading networks, I was skeptical. Now I see she was right. There is much our peoples could learn from each other. Your Majesty, Kai said carefully, I didn't come here to influence policy. I came because... He hesitated. Because you care for my daughter, the Emperor finished. Yes, that's rather obvious. Though I suspect you care more for her mind than her title, which is refreshingly unusual in this court. Before Kai could respond, new alarms sounded, but these were ceremonial, announcing the beginning of the birthday celebrations. The Emperor's scales rippled with what Kai had learned to recognize as a smile. "It seems we're about to find out just how ready our people are for new traditions," the Emperor said. "I suggest you make sure your gift is ready," Kai of Outpost Epsilon. "My daughter has always preferred practical presents over pretty ones." The grand celebration hall of the Lizarian Palace teemed with dignitaries from 17 star systems. Kai watched from a secluded corner as Rena received each delegation, her scales shifting through formal patterns of welcome. She looked different here, every inch the princess she was born to be. The suitors' presentations began with predictable pomp. Each brought elaborate gifts, rare stellar artifacts, promises of military alliances, and technologies their worlds claimed were unprecedented. Kai noticed how Rena's scales dulled slightly with each presentation, though only someone who had spent time with her in a workshop would recognize her boredom. "Quite a spectacle, isn't it?" Commander Voss appeared beside Kai, making him jump. "Though I notice you haven't registered a formal presentation slot." "I'm not here to compete for political alliances," Kai replied. "No," Voss agreed, his scales rippling thoughtfully. "You're here for something far more dangerous." Before Kai could respond, the commander continued, "Did you know I opposed the princess's interest in human engineering? I thought it beneath her station. But I've watched you both. You don't treat her like a princess to be won. You treat her like a fellow engineer." Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from the presentation floor. The delegation from the hegemony of 6 was protesting the presence of a human at a royal celebration. Their ambassador, a crystalline being who sparkled with barely contained energy, was demanding Kai's removal. "This is an insult," the ambassador thundered. "Humans are barely beyond their planetary bounds. Their presence here undermines the dignity of this celebration." The hall fell silent as Emperor Venix rose from his throne. "The human engineer Kai is here at my personal invitation," he declared. "His recent contribution to our palace's systems has proven the value of collaboration between our peoples." "Then let him prove his worth now," the ambassador challenged. "Let him present a gift worthy of a Lizarian princess, alongside our offerings." Kai felt every eye in the hall turn to him. Rena's scales had shifted to a pattern he'd never seen before, worry mixed with something else. Trust, he realized. She trusted him to handle this moment. He stepped forward, holding the completed quantum harmonizer. "My gift is not rare or expensive," he began. "It won't forge military alliances or expand trade routes. It's simply a device that allows us to see the world through each other's eyes." Activating the harmonizer, he directed its field toward the great crystal windows of the celebration hall. The gathered dignitaries gasped as the light split into spectrums they'd never seen before, revealing patterns and colors unique to each species' vision. "Princess Renamaktu taught me that true progress comes not from imposing our way of seeing things on others, but from learning to see through many eyes," Kai continued. "This device doesn't just translate light. It reminds us that every species, every culture, has something unique to share." The hall erupted in murmurs as diplomats realized the implications. A device that could help different species literally see from each other's perspectives had implications far beyond a simple birthday gift. Rena stepped down from her royal dais, her scales now shimmering with unmistakable joy. "This," she announced to the hall, "is why I chose to study human engineering. Not because humans have the most advanced technology, but because they have an unmatched ability to imagine new possibilities." The final day of celebrations brought the moment everyone had been waiting for: Princess Renamaktu's response to the suitors' proposals. The gathering was smaller than previous days, limited to the highest-ranking representatives and their immediate staff. Kai stood near the back, Commander Voss at his side. "You've started something, you know," Voss said quietly. "Half the delegations have already requested technical specifications for your harmonizer." Rena stood before the assembled dignitaries, her scales rippling with determination. Throughout these celebrations, we've seen impressive displays of wealth, power, and technological advancement. But these offerings have focused on what makes us different, on maintaining the boundaries between our peoples. She activated Kay's harmonizer, filling the chamber with transforming light. Yet our greatest strength lies not in our differences, but in how we bridge them. My father's generation established peace between our worlds. It falls to my generation to transform that peace into true collaboration. The Emperor's scales shifted with pride as Rena continued. Therefore, I propose something unprecedented. Instead of choosing a single alliance, I will establish an interstellar engineering coalition. Every world represented here will be invited to participate, sharing knowledge and resources to solve challenges that affect us all. Murmurs filled the chamber as Rena's scales took on the formal pattern of royal decree. And to demonstrate our commitment to this new path, I named Kai of Outpost Epsilon as the Coalition's first Chief Innovation Officer, pending his acceptance. Kai stepped forward, still processing her words. This wasn't just about him and Rena anymore. This was about reshaping how entire civilizations interacted. "I accept," he said, "on one condition." The gathered diplomats buzzed with shock at his audacity, but Rena's scales flickered with curiosity. "Name it." "That the Coalition's first project is establishing engineering education centers on stations like Epsilon. Real progress doesn't come from royal declarations. It comes from people working together, learning from each other's perspectives, finding solutions nobody could see alone." Rena's scales shifted to a pattern Kai had never seen in formal settings. It was the same one she'd shown when they'd first solved a technical puzzle together in his workshop. "Accepted," she declared. "Let it be recorded that the Coalition's founding principle is that innovation knows no boundaries of species, status, or station." Later, in a quiet moment between diplomatic meetings, Kai found Rena in her laboratory, already sketching plans for the first education center. "You know," he said, "when I was building that harmonizer as a birthday gift, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "Didn't you?" Her scales rippled with amusement. "You showed everyone that the best gifts don't just solve problems, they create new possibilities." She touched the harmonizer gently. "Though I must admit, I had an ulterior motive in naming you Chief Innovation Officer." "Oh." "Coalition leadership will require frequent meetings with Lizarian royalty," she said, her scales shifting to a pattern he recognized as hope. "It seems only logical that we continue working together, learning from each other's perspectives." Kai smiled, understanding the gift she was offering, a way forward that honored both their duties and their feelings. "I suppose we'll need to build something new together," he said. "Something nobody's ever seen before." "We already have," Rena replied, her scales glowing with certainty. And as they bent over the plans together, the harmonizer's light played across their faces, showing each how the other saw their shared future, bright with possibilities neither could have imagined alone.